Everyone, welcome again to another Google Hangout. Today I have a special surprise for all of you, an expert, but before I tell you who this is, let me say that I'm Sonia Marsh. I'm the founder of the Gutsy Living blog, as well as the My Gutsy Story anthology series. I'm also the author of a memoir, Freeways to Flip-Flops, and I'm a book marketing coach. But it is my extreme pleasure to introduce all of you to an expert who helps authors at all stages. Welcome, Nina Amir.
Thanks so much, Sonia. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Good, good. I'm glad that your new camera and new microphone are working great today. So without further ado, let me just give everyone a little bit of your background, and then we can start chatting about the how to become and how to develop the author attitude. So first of all, Nina Amir is the author of the bestseller How to Blog a Book. I actually loved that book, as well as the newly released The Author Training Manual, which transforms writers into inspired, successful authors, authorpreneurs, and blogpreneurs. Known as the Inspiration to Creation Coach, she moves her clients from ideas to finished books, as well as to careers as authors, by helping them combine their passion and purpose so they create products that positively and meaningfully impact the world. Yes, so Nina, I know you and I met at a couple of conferences, and I was very impressed with the information that you give and the way you help authors.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you two questions, but the first one is, why do writers need an author attitude? And then the second one is, I'm so curious how you developed your own author attitude.
Okay. Well, you know, writers have a really tough road to hoe. I mean, we like to think that it's easy, that we sit down, we write a book, and that's the end of it. But really, it's not that easy. And we hear these statistics that 81% of the U.S. population wants to write a book, but only 2% actually ever does. So that really tells you something about how difficult the task is. And it's really not as easy to publish a book as we think. I mean, you know, I had somebody here painting my deck or staining my deck, and he hands me some books on decks, right, on how to take care of my deck. Well, he self-published them, and he's telling me that he's helping other people self-publish books, and he's just throwing them up on Kindle. Well, yeah, anyone can do that, but produce good books that are marketable and that will sell in large quantities, that's a different story. To produce commercial, marketable books is really different. And plus, it's, you know, we hear all about author platform and promotion and marketing and, you know, all these things that are
part of it, yeah.
Yeah, part of it. They're inherent to the process and to creating successful books. And these are not things that we necessarily want to do as writers. And to be an indie publisher, as you know, it takes running a business. So these are things that writers don't want to do.
I totally agree with you. And before you just go and tell me how you developed this author attitude, I just want to say that my inspiration was an English woman, Catherine Sanderson, who was blogging in 2004. And I came across her blog, and for some reason something clicked with me. I thought, gosh, she landed an agent because she was one of those early bloggers, and I thought, if she can do it, I can do it. So what about you? How did you develop this business entrepreneurial skill of becoming an author entrepreneur?
Well, there were several things. I mean, one is, I mean, I have to say that my husband is a finance type. He's the business type. He helps startup companies, and so I was always hearing these terms, you know, venture capital partners, business plans, and I started thinking about what it was that we do as authors, especially as indie authors. But and I realized that what we're doing is running businesses. That I started thinking about the publishing industry and realized that the publishing industry really is the business of producing, distributing, selling books, and that as authors, when we go to a publisher and say, I want to be traditionally published, or to an agent, what we're really, well, more to a publisher, we're asking them to be our venture capital partners, to put up the money and to back our products. And as indie publishers, we're creating startup companies,
right?
Startup publishing companies. So it's all about business. And for me, my eyes glaze over when I think about business and money and all of that. So I had to really wrap my arms around that this is what I was doing. But there really came a point, I was doing all of it. I had submitted my first proposal that I sent out. I got rave reviews for it. I had an agent call me and tell me she was interested, but I had no platform. And that was my introduction to platform, to the fact that I couldn't just write a book. I had to do pre-promotion and develop this built-in readership for my book. And so I couldn't just sit there and write. And for about 8 years, I piddled around with that. I said I was doing it, but I didn't really want to do it. I just did it because I had to. And for 8 years, that's what happened. And I wanted a publisher, and I had an agent, but I still wasn't getting published. And one day I just looked at everything I'd been doing, and I said, I'm not really getting anywhere. And I'm getting somewhere, but not fast enough.
Right.
If I keep going like this, I may never get where I want to go, which is to be published and successfully published. And I just told myself I refuse to fail. I refuse to fail at this. And in that moment, my whole attitude changed. And all the things I had to do, like speaking and building platform on the internet and all the promotion and all the business side of things, became a means to an end for me, but a way for me to reach my goal, and my attitude about them changed. I really embraced them. I wrapped my arms around them, and I didn't necessarily love them, but I grew to like them. And in fact, I really like social networking, and I love speaking. And things that were, originally I was nervous about speaking, but now I love it, and I spend a lot of my time speaking. And so my attitude about all of it changed, and within 4 years, so in half the time, I had a best-selling book. I had a new agent. I had doubled the size of my platform. All of that, all because my attitude changed.
Right, and I completely agree with you. I just want to say something. I've got the chat open. If you have any questions, I'm going to experiment. My friend Jason Matthews told me that if you want to ask questions to Nina, I've got a second computer. I can look at the screen and read it to Nina. So please put your questions in the comments section. I completely agree with you, Nina, about this author attitude. I wanted to say, though, that what do you tell people who are working a full-time job? I'm fortunate that I've been able to market and spend hours and hours, and I'm like you. I enjoy people. I enjoy forming relationships, which is, to me, is the key to all of this, connecting with people. So how do you, when people ask you, I just can't spend the whole day doing all this blogging and platform building, what kind of things can you recommend? I know we can all find a few hours here and there, but do you think it takes a full-time job to do this?
No. I think it helps if the more time you have, but you really can. The social networking can be done in small bits of time. I suggest you follow Frances Caballo on the internet, because Frances Caballo has great books on social networking for writers that talk about all the tips and tools that cut down on time. Mm-hmm. But there are ways to do it in, like 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at lunchtime, 15 minutes at night. You can get tools that will help you curate content so that you can easily share content besides your own. If you're blogging, blogging, of course, takes some time, but I'm a big advocate of blogging as your central focus for your social networking, so that you have something of your own to share.
Right. And I'd like to share you have how many blogs? I was like surprised. 4. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to do a screen share so we can see your blogs, and you can maybe tell us a little bit. I'm going to go to your blogs and columns. The one you said was Write Nonfiction Now.
Right, that is the main one. For anyone who's interested in writing and publishing, that's the main blog to go to. There I write about primarily nonfiction, but some of what I talk about is also relevant to novelists.
Right.
That's the primary one. And then How to Blog a Book, of course, has more information on blogging.
Right.
In general, as well as blogging books.
And in your opinion, I mean, I'll tell you, I met an author who I'm going to How to Blog a Book, a successful children's book author who said she does not blog, but she interacts with people on Facebook, and her audience of readers has built due to her Facebook interactions. What's your opinion about that? Does it take a certain... Go ahead.
There are some people who do quite well with that, but the problem is that if Facebook were to go away tomorrow, so would everything she's built. She doesn't own any of that. The only thing you can own is your own blog, and I don't mean a free blog. I mean one that you're paying for hosting for. So you have to have an author website.
Right, and it seems to me that you're helping not just nonfiction, but also novelists, and here you have How and Why to Blog a Romance Novel. So you appeal to both novelists and nonfiction.
Yeah, my expertise is in nonfiction, but in terms of how to market and how to brand yourself and how to use social networks, all of that sort of thing, I appeal to everyone. And my new book, The Author Training Manual, is geared to everyone, to novelists, to nonfiction writers, to indie authors, to traditionally published authors. It's really for everyone.
And we're going to get to that new book of yours and discuss the 4 elements that make up this attitude of the author attitude. But before that, I just want to say that there was something in your book that really... I have used it when I speak to groups, and I think it's a brilliant idea. The question of who is this book going to appeal to, and not only that, but if you're writing, you were saying, let's say that you're writing a novel, and you talk about writing about orchids, and that you can appeal to specific groups, so that you should think about those things before, in order to increase your audience when the book comes out. I thought that was brilliant. Please, can you expand on that?
Yeah, so that's the idea of looking at your market and knowing your market, and that's something novelists tend not to want to look at this business side, and they don't want to study their markets, and they don't want to look at the competition. And I think that's where they fall down, because what I hear from agents all the time is that they get too many query letters, that the novels that are described sound too much like everything else. It's too much like Harry Potter, too much like 50 Shades of Grey, whatever, too many mermaids, too many this, too many that, and they don't get past the first couple sentences. And so that can be avoided if you do a really good market analysis and a really good competitive analysis. And so that's really what we're talking about here, is to really get to know who your reader is, what the market is, and what the market needs and wants, and then also to study the competition so you know what's out there. But specifically with the orchid example, what I was saying was that you could, if you were going to carry, if you knew that your books were going to all have a, if you're writing a book that had it was, let's say, a thriller, and your main character, your killer, was going to leave an orchid petal at the crime scene, you now have a novel that is going to appeal to people who like orchids, because they're going to be interested in these orchids and this killer who's leaving orchids, and why is he leaving orchids. And so now you can not only sell the book in bookstores and on Amazon, but you could also go and sell them at orchid shows and in orchid stores, and because people who like orchids are going to be more interested in that, and you have no idea how many people who like orchids like thrillers,
Right.
Not only that, you can cross over into nonfiction, and that is a huge thing because you could write a book about orchids or orchid care or the type of orchids that you happen to be, your killer is leaving behind, and that gives you a chance to go speak. And you could speak to people who like orchids, and at the back of the room, you're selling your novel, and that gives you an expertise. And maybe orchids isn't the best expertise per se, but maybe it is. Millions of people buy orchids every year.
And you also gave the example about having a dog as your sidekick or something, and how many 40 million people, or I can't remember the statistic, own dogs in the United States. It was something like that. Right. I can't remember. But I mean, can you apply that to a memoir as well?
Sure, because if your memoir is about you and your dog, let's say, or how you, let's say you took on a service dog. Okay, right. Lots of people take on service dogs for a year. Let's say it's about your year raising a service dog, and you then go and do research on the best way to raise a service dog, or maybe you do this several times, and so you apply all that information that you have from your own life experience, and you get information on, interview people who are service dog experts and people who get the service dogs that have been trained by, lay people, whatever, and you put this all together into a book. You not only have the memoir, you have the informative book that you can sell now to the people who want to train the service dogs, right. Or take them on. They don't really train them. They just, take them on for a year and raise them. But, you would have all this information, and now you can speak to all kinds of groups of people who are interested in service dogs or want to raise service dogs, and you can get involved with that whole organization of service dog,
right.
who breed the service dogs, and, you know what I mean? So this becomes a whole other thing.
So I agree, but I was thinking of somebody who's thinking of writing their memoir, and maybe they could focus and emphasize a certain part that they hadn't thought of emphasizing, or not just one part, but several parts, by doing what you say, doing the market analysis ahead of time.
Sure.
And so why don't we talk about the 4 elements that make up this author attitude?
So the 4 parts that make up an author attitude, we'll start with the acronym. So the acronym is WOOT. So, you can think of Arsenio Hall, like woot, 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 woot,
yes.
Which is what you want to be able to say at the end. It's WOOT. And the first word is willingness. So that's the first W, is willingness. And that you need to have willingness. So this author attitude has all these 4 characteristics, and willingness is necessary because there are so many things you have to do to become a successful author that you may not want to do. Like we talked about, the business end, the sales, the promotion, so many hats you have to wear that you really didn't think you'd have to wear. Mm-hmm. And so you have to become willing to do that. So that's number 1. Number 2, there's also the willingness of handing your work over to an editor. There's the willingness of, to take the feedback you get from an editor and apply it to your work. Just all of that. So willingness is huge. Right. To just apply the feedback, to make your work better, to sit down every day and do your work, to write, to change. Willingness to change is huge, and willingness to do everything it takes. So without willingness to do all these things and to change, because as I said, I had to change. I had to change my attitude about these things I had to do. So that's the underlying concept here, is willingness to change, but willingness in general. So we have to have willingness, otherwise we're not going to be able to do anything else.
And let me just say that what I think happens when you put in the willingness and you start the blogging, and that is that people start connecting with you. And I remember when I started getting comments, that made me more enthusiastic. So it's a process.
It is. It is. And even like you said, if we went back to the example of doing the market research, it's the willingness to do the market research and say, I want to write a memoir. And hey, there's a dog in my memoir. And maybe, if I were to focus on the dog as part of my memoir, or to look at your life and say, what part of my life do I want to write a memoir about? And, oh, look, if I wrote about this part of my life with the dog, and there are this many people who have dogs and they would be interested, this would be a more marketable memoir.
Right.
That willingness to not just say, I'm going to just write about whatever I want to write about, but I'm going to write something that will sell.
Exactly.
Right? So willingness to change your attitude about what you're going to write as well if you want to succeed.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, unfortunately, writers don't think about the money aspect. And when I kept talking to publishers who say it is a business, it's about the money, that's the thing that I think writers are reluctant to put into their heads, that especially if they want a traditional publisher, is you have to think of how is this going to make money for the publisher.
Right, and if they're having trouble with that, they can switch that. They can think about it in terms of impact. Writers want to get read, and they can't have an impact in anyone's life if they don't get read. And getting read and selling books are the same thing. So just switch the gears from how many books am I going to sell to how many books will be read.
Very good.
Okay, so the second letter is O, and that's for optimism. And this is not about being a Pollyanna. It's not about just always trying to have a positive thought, although I'm a big advocate of thinking positively. But there are studies that show that people who are optimistic succeed more than people who are pessimistic. And the reason for that is very simple. People who are optimistic, when they get something like a rejection letter from an agent or a bad review of their book, or an editor gives them feedback that is negative, they don't get stuck. They don't take it personally and say, this is something inherently wrong with my work or with me, and there's nothing I can do about it. They actually see it as an opportunity to make changes within themselves, with their work, and to move forward towards their goal.
I will just interrupt you 1 second. That's exactly what happened to me. I had a small press that was pursuing me for 3 years. Then she turned me down after 3 years and said, I think you need to start your second book. This one is no good. You've been working on it for too long. And I said to myself, I'm going to prove her wrong. I am so happy that she rejected me. So I became a fighter.
Right? So there you go. So that's it. But see, a pessimist, on the other hand, a pessimist is going to say there's something inherently wrong with me, something inherently wrong with my work, and there's nothing I can do about it. And they're just going to stop. And they're going to get stuck. And so that's where an optimist is very different. So optimism is very important. And we get so many rejections as writers, and there's a lot of negativity that comes at us. And even just me saying, it's a tough road to hoe, and there's so much to do, and we have to wear so many hats, and we can't do what we want. All of that is very negative, right? Like, I'm the rainmaker always who comes and says, this is hard, But the fact is that if you're optimistic and you're willing, those two characteristics right there, you're going to have a much easier time moving through all that negativity and making it into something positive, making it into an opportunity and a challenge, rather than an obstacle. Okay, so the second O is objectivity. So objectivity is very important for a couple reasons. The first one is fairly obvious, and that's that you need to be objective when you're getting feedback on your work, right? Because one of the first things that has to happen to us when we finish our manuscripts is we have to turn them in to an editor, and we have to get feedback, and so we have to be objective. And if we're having somebody look at our website or anything like that, we have to have the objectivity to hear what's being said and to take that and to see it as constructive criticism, not just as criticism. And we need to be able to do something about it. So that kind of objectivity is very, very important as a writer if we want to succeed. The other thing is to have the objectivity to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And those shoes are the shoes of a literary agent or an acquisitions editor. And that's really the important person. The acquisitions editor is the person who who purchases or who acquires manuscripts for a publishing house. So whether you independently publish or you self-publish, you want to be able to see yourself and your work through their lens, through their eyes, because you want to learn to evaluate your manuscript or your idea, really, when you first have it, the same way an acquisitions editor would. I don't care how you publish, because they're the publishing professionals who know whether a book is marketable. They know whether it's going to sell.
Right.
They know how to evaluate it. So you want to learn to evaluate it in the same way, which is what I teach in the author training manual. But that's the objectivity you want to have. You want to be able to stand back and see the big picture of your book from that kind of lens so that you know whether it's marketable. So that's the objectivity you need. And then the last thing is tenacity. And this is huge, because it's just like when you said, you know, oh, she turned me down, and I said, you know, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to prove her wrong. That's tenacity. That's, you know, I'm going to do it. You know, me saying I'm gonna, you know, do this no matter what. There's no way I'm going to fail. That is tenacity. You have to have that perseverance, that persistence that says, you know, no matter what obstacles come up, I am going to get over them. I'm going to see them as challenges and opportunities, and I am not going to stop no matter what until I reach my goal. And that all of that together becomes woot, becomes an opportunity for you to, you know, put your fist in the air and say, yeah, I'm excited, I did it. And the word woot, interestingly enough, came out of the computer hacker world, and they used woot to mean hacking into the computers. So our computers are our brains, and so we have to hack into our minds, and that is where all of this happens. Author attitude happens here, and when we can hack into our minds, you know, we can really change what's happening with us. And that word, actually, woot, then went into the gamers industry, and from Dungeons and Dragons, actually, and they used it to mean wow loot. So actually, if you can hack into your brain, you can then maybe make some money with your books, right? And then you can do the Arsenio Hall thing and get very excited.
Right. And I think one of the things that, for me, I'm an impatient person, and I think that a lot of us expect success immediately, or whatever our definition of success is. But the things that I learned were, it takes time. The branding takes time. It doesn't come to you immediately. And I know you have a chapter on how to develop your brand. And if you want to discuss that for a few minutes. And I also wanted to say that it's hard work. It's simply hard work. It can be fun, but it's hard work. It is not something that happens just, you know, because you've written a book.
Right.
So.
No, it is hard work. You have to really want this. That's the thing. I think you have to really, really want to be a successful author, and it doesn't happen over time. Overnight. Seth Godin, the marketing guru, says that, you know, you have to start marketing yourself and your book 3 years before the book comes out.
Right.
And I think it's longer. I really do, because, you know, to have a blog and have it be successful, and to make your social network successful, all of that takes time. And
right.
And you can get help. You know, that's the other thing. I mean, yes, it takes money, but you can get people to help you if you don't have the time, if you don't have the total willingness to do some of these jobs. You can hire people to help you. But you do have to have the personal touch with it. It's a lot of who you are that has to be in this.
Right, and I do agree with you about hiring people, especially if you want to run it as a business. There is no way that we can know how to develop a website, a WordPress website, how to format a book with InDesign. I mean, there's so many things that I believe you do have to hire if you want to be taken seriously and have a commercial book that could potentially win awards. You agree?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah. That's the mistake. Like I said, you know, my deck guy, you know, he's creating the covers himself. He's doing the design himself, right. And the books look okay, but they're not going to be commercial successes. If you really want to do this correctly, if you're going to independently publish, then you have to run it like a business, and you have to have a team. You have to have designers and editors and proofreaders and indexers, and this is your team, and they may not be your full-time staff, but they are your staff. And I recently got to the point where I had to hire virtual assistants, and I fought it tooth and nail. And the day that I made the decision, okay, I'm going to hire a virtual assistant, don't even know if I can afford her, I hired 2. Because
Did you?
Because I was like, if I'm going to do this, then I'm really going to do it, because I don't have the time to do everything I'm doing. I was overwhelmed, and I do this every day, all day.
Right.
But I have clients also. I coach clients on all of this, and from starting from their idea all the way through to building a business around their books. And
so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, because we have a few minutes left, and I know you can help a lot of authors. So tell us what you do for coaching, and what other, I know you speak at various conferences, so why don't you let us know how people can connect with you and learn about your coaching and hire you and things like that.
Thank you. Well, I offer several kinds of coaching. So one of the coaching programs I have is author coaching, and with author coaching, I do a variety of things. What I love to do is to start with people from their idea, as I said, all the way through to we do huge mind maps of here's my idea, to what kind of other books could come, what book would come out of that. We create a structure. We then can spin that off into other books that they might write, and how that can create a brand for them, and how that will be carried out into a website or a author blog for them, and how that could then be carried out into products and services like courses and membership sites, or whatever they want to do, so that they can actually build a business around their book. But that could also involve marketing or promotion, or any of that. How to blog. I do blogging coaching, blog to book coaching. I do proposal coaching and proposal consulting. So
that's something we didn't discuss, was the book proposal, but that's a huge topic in itself. It's a big chapter in your book. I know that.
Yeah, well, the whole book is really about, the author training manual is all about a book proposal. Right. The business plan for a book is a book proposal. And I also do book coaching. So if somebody wants help, getting their book written and getting it started, then I do that. And then, I do, and the author coaching can be that. If somebody wants to create a book proposal and they want to work with someone on it, then we'll go through that, because actually the whole process of the author training manual, the author training process, as I call it, is to go through every step of a book proposal and use it as the business plan for a book, so that you're evaluating, your idea, your markets, your competition, yourself, your platform, all of that, so that you're creating, you're crafting a book that will sell.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, just to let people know, you have at the back of the author training manual, you have exercises that are incredibly well planned, that people can sit and try and work out all the different aspects of the training exercises as well.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
And the books are all on Amazon. So, and the easiest place to find my books is booksbyninaamir.com. But go to Amazon, and then of course they can find me at ninaamir.com, or that's the easiest place to find my blogs and all of that. But they can also find my my blogs at writenonfictionnow.com and howtoblogAbook.com.
Okay, well, I think you have done so much to help all authors, and I'm glad I met you in person at IBPA, the Independent Book Publishers Association, in February, and I hope to meet you again soon. So I'd like to urge everyone to go to ninaamir.com and check out all her wonderful blogs and all the information and coaching that she offers. So thank you, Nina.
Thank you. This was fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I will be doing another Gutsy Hangout next week with Kathy Pooler on the 28th at 9 o'clock in the morning. So without any more information today, I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you again. And don't forget, if you want to check out my blog or send me a story for the Gutsy Anthology, just email me at sonia@soniamarsh.com. Thank you so much, and see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.